This is Lucas here, of course. Now, if you're also one of those professionals who's looking to make some money through investments, then you're here at the good address, of course, because in today's video, I'm going to talk about the 3 bad habits that people tend to have if you're not a good investor. Now, there are so many people out there that call themselves an investor, but hey, are you doing the right things? Are you doing the things that if you want to make money, not only for a short term, but if you want to make money for the long term, that you should also be focusing on these 3 things. Now, I'll show you this, okay? So the 3 things that show that you are a bad investor, that you have no knowledge of investing. Now, the first thing is very important. The first thing that people tend to do is long-term investing. So it should be long-term. Now, people tend to ask me very often, Lucas, what is long term? Now, some people ask me, is it already starting from 3 years? Now, long term is a relative, the whole word, the whole concept is a relative thing. Now, most likely, long term does start from a few years already, but that is still a short term if you always look back 30 years behind. You know, if you look back 30 years, what changes happened to you? What happened in your life? Now, and all of a sudden we're talking about those 3 years. 3 years in education in university takes already 4 years. So is 3 years long term? Well, I think 3 years is absolutely the beginning of a long-term strike. So if you want to make money, okay, it seems that people here on the road are using the motorcycles. So long-term thinking, you really have to think investing is not like a quick money scheme. You're not going to get money quick. Like some people, I've got one of my old clients of mine who said, Lucas, you do investing in real estate. And yes, I do. And he said, Lucas, you bought 10 properties within a year. Isn't that making quick money? Well, I'll tell you that. It is making quick money in maybe 1 year, but it's not making quick money for now. The money I make from those properties is for the long term. So even for investing in stocks, you have to focus. You got to keep and stick to those stocks for at least 5 years or so. Because 5 years, if you're going to say 5 years, if you dare to say, I'm going to trust in certain funds, I'm going to trust in certain stocks, I'm going to trust in certain companies for at least 5 years, and maybe 10 is even better. If you can think that, and you can set aside money for that as well, then yes, this is investing. So investing for the long term is a very important thing. So the second thing that people always tend to do and to forget is not doing their research. Now, I'm not saying like research in the university as what I've done in my job as well. It's doing research in the stocks and funds and companies that you tend to invest in. If you have no knowledge on what you tend to do and what you tend to buy, because in the end, investing in stocks, investing in companies, in the end, what you do is you're buying a little bit of ownership of that company. Now, instead of you taking care of their business, you are one of those investors. You're giving them money, saying that, I believe in what you do as a company. I believe in what you do. And over time, your company will be valued more. And that's how I will make money through my shares in your company. Now, if you do not do your research well, this is what happens so often. And people always ask me, Lucas, I do my best in research and I think this company is good. Now, doing your research well is very good, very important. But if you don't have certain criteria that you can select certain stocks, that you can select certain companies, if you don't have the criteria, what happens in the end is you're trying to guess, short-term wise, trying to guess if companies in the long term are going to work out for you. And that is the mistake that so many people tend to do, because they're always looking at this end. They're not looking at this end here, in the long term. You got to take a look at this. This is very important. If you want to make money over the long term, you got to research the companies. You got to research the stocks and select them on certain criteria also for the long term. This, and that's why point number one is still set on number one, because this is so many people's errors. They just think, you know what, if I start investing today, and if I make money for 3 years, if I make money for 5 years, if I make money for 10 years, that's good enough, right? Now you might be thinking, then what's the difference here? You have to research the company. You have to research the stock for a longer term. Now you got to think like this as well. So there are so many people out there who say, like, Lucas, you know, I've got a financial advisor, and who's going to give me advice? Now that's very good. There are a lot of financial advisors out there. Now, if people ask me for my advice, hey Lucas, can you give me some financial advice? Of course I can. But I'll tell you this, I don't care what you do with your money. I don't care about that. What I care about is that you learn the skill to take control over the knowledge. Research it yourself. Don't just say, you know what, Lucas says this and I'll just do this as well. That's just trusting in the hope that my goals align with yours. Now, I don't know what your goals are in your life. I don't know what your financial goals are. I don't know about them. So just randomly following what I do doesn't get you to where you want to be. This is very important. Therefore, researching everything, all the companies, the stocks, because in the end, what you're doing is you're giving your money away in the hope that those people will make it more value in time. So if you're putting your money away already, if you're thinking, you know what, I'm going to give my money away, I'm going to invest in something, and in time it will, it will be more value, so I'm going to get money back. It is very important, if you're going to do that, research it. Research it so well that you know, okay, even in the long term, I don't have to look at it anymore. In the long term, in maybe 5 years' time, they've maybe doubled it. Maybe they have tripled in the value. You don't know that. Now, we've got different restaurants, for example, and in the restaurant business, it's very simple. If people get sick from the food, and it gets in the news that one restaurant chain got, I don't know, maybe 5 people sick, what happened all of a sudden is that the stocks in that market for that company will drop. They will plummet. Investors will think, you know what, it's not going so well with this company. The interesting part is the company, the restaurant branch, hasn't done anything else than they've normally always have done. And yes, maybe that year, maybe 2 or 3 clients, customers got ill after eating the food. Doesn't mean that everything else changed. Nothing changed. But the interesting part is investors think, you know what, we got to pull the plug now. We got to cut the losses. So what happens is that a certain stock, they could be very stable, but all of a sudden they fall. And that's the moment, that's the moment. So the moment the stock falls, a company is forced to think of innovations, think of solutions, think of, what should we do differently? Although they might be doing a great thing already. And this causes a stock to rise afterwards. Now, we don't know how much they fall. We don't know how much they rise again. But this is the tendency of great companies. So if you know the companies go like this is the moment that you need to buy your stocks as well. This is the moment that you think, you know what, I have to adjust my strategy to this. Therefore, doing research in the correct stocks, doing research in the correct companies is very, very important. Now, doing research may sound like a lot of work, but if you research the things that are in your field of interest, it makes it a lot easier already. You don't have to research the things that you have no knowledge on. You don't have to research the things that you have no interest in. Research the things that interest you. Check out those things that you think, hey, this is interesting. That is how you do research. And of course, the habit number 3 is not knowing of events. Now, of events, what I mean with that is if you have no knowledge around the world around you, and you tend to be ignorant for that, for example, the crisis that we're in right now, If you're trying to be ignorant and say, you know what, I do things that I always want to do it like that. If you want to go to the store and you'll take your whole family with you, yes, that's not called quarantine. You're not knowing, you're being ignorant to the events that are happening right now. If you're doing like that, what happens is that all of a sudden, if you say like, you know what, I've been learned and I've been taught a certain strategy and I'm going to stick to the strategy, which is great. But depending on a certain events happening, you still have to adjust sometimes your strategy. I'm not saying that you should completely throw away your strategy and then all of a sudden do different things. No, you should stick to your strategy, but adjust to it depending on what events there are. And that is very important, because sometimes when you're selling off a certain stock, you might be thinking, you know what, buying this stock again, trying to reinvest in it, for example, is not a good idea. Then all of a sudden what happens, you'll be like, you know what, but I'm a systematic investor and this month I need to invest in something, which is correct according to the method. If you apply the dollar cost averaging method, that's correct. But if the current situation doesn't allow you to buy something right now, adjust your strategy and think like, you know what, I'm going to research again for a new stock, for a new company to invest in. And currently I have nothing because of the certain event happening right now. And this is very important. This is what so many people tend to forget sometimes. You have to think long term. You have to have a certain research on all the stocks, and all the companies have certain criteria to select your stocks. And the moment you have them, always be aware of what is happening around you. Now, I'm not saying that you should be reading on the news every day, all day long. I'm not telling you that. But the moment something is happening and going to come up very soon, that's your choice. That's your power to choose and adjust. If you are not able to adjust, if you're this person like, you know, I was taught this method and I'm going to do this method and I'm not going to adjust at all, people called with a fixed mindset, if you're always thinking of one tunnel vision, I'm sorry, but that's one of the 3 bad habits of a bad investor. You have no idea how it's really about investing. Investing is really to stick to your strategy, but also knowing when to adjust and how to adjust, using a certain strategy, using certain criteria. Now, if you believe, hey, I may be a bad investor then in this case, don't worry too much about it, because these are habits that you can adjust. You can also adjust this. Everybody, I believe, just like you, I believe that everybody can adjust at all times. Long-term thinking, don't worry. If you think of short-term, if you were always focusing on 3 years, the only thing what you need to do is, for this particular part in your life, try to adjust it for longer. 5 years, maybe 10, maybe 15, maybe even 30, maybe even longer, depending on what phase you are in your life. Research, same goes for that. If you weren't good enough in doing your research, well, spend a little bit more time in research right now. But focus on the things you're interested in. Focus on the things you have knowledge about. Don't go into technology area if technology is not your thing. Don't worry too much about that. And of course, if you're not knowing about the events, start today. But just checking out the news 5 minutes a day, maybe. Just checking the news websites. For example, the Washington News, that's what I check as well. You know, the New York Times, just to see what's happening in North America. Checking out the European news, checking out the Asian news. Now, you have Asian news in your language, I suppose. See, since, you know, I am Chinese, I do speak Chinese, but I don't read Chinese newspapers, okay? So it's very important to always think, hey, you know, I can always adjust as well. Even if you have bad habits as an investor, you can always adjust and change, because that is what we are all about. We can all change and become the better. If you're doing investing already, very good for you. If you're an investor and you have one of these 3 habits, don't worry too much about it. Change it, adjust it, and make more money from today on. Hey, thank you very much for watching today's video. Of course, if you believe we should watch this video more often, give me a thumbs up. I would like that very much. Share this video with your friends and family and colleagues, of course. Hey, and if you want to learn more, about investing as well, be sure to check out my masterclass. It's on lukasshu.com/masterclass. You'll learn more stuff like these. It's an actual masterclass for at least 30 minutes. So it's a bit longer than this video, of course. Hey, and of course, if you want to check out more stuff, be sure to subscribe to the channel as well. And if you want to if you have any questions, of course, reach out to me on social media platforms like YouTube and Facebook and LinkedIn. Thank you very much, and I'll see you on a next video.